What's good, y'all? My name is Aaron Lee, and I'm the CEO and editor-in-chief of Off Black Magazine. I want to thank you for coming to this panel at Ink and Panels Volume 2. This panel is Intro to Script Writing, and we have some people who are very adept at this and have written some amazing comics, have written some amazing animation and live-action films and TV. And one who we just learned on this thing is also Eisner nominated. Now by now you've probably seen it. It's probably been yelled from the rooftops. She's everywhere, but we just learned about it right now as we're in this recording. And so a lot of great people who can talk about their process in writing, from ideation all the way to before it gets passed off to that next person to do their job, right? And so if you're really interested in creating your own comic, creating your own film, creating your own animation and stuff like that, and that level of writing, this is where we'll start. But enough about the four of me, and we're just going to go around the room and have everyone kind of introduce themselves, talk about them. Let's start with David.
Hi everyone. I'm David Crownson. I'm the writer and creator of Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer and Killer Bee. I'm also the founder of Kingwood Comics. I love dogs. My favorite food is Red Lobster biscuits. Um, and I just, made White Castle stuffing, and it was delicious.
Okay.
Go ahead, AJ.
Hi, White Castle. You gotta give me the recipe for that.
I'll hook it up. I'll hook it up.
I'm AJ Ampadu, founder of Earthstone Kingdoms comic company, writer of comics like Kimmy Cosmic and Dragon Face. Also working with Valiant Comics on Tales of Shadow Man. And my favorite color is cornflower blue. And I do genuinely like walks on the beach, like genuinely like them.
Brandon.
Hey, I'm Brandon Easton. I'm a writer of many disciplines. I have worked in animation, video games, comics, and movies and television. So some of my credits: Thundercats 2011, worked on a Marvel's Agent Carter season 2, Transformers War for Cybertron Siege for Netflix, as well as a Yanu, which is now currently still number one in its demographic on Cartoon Network and number one in 44 African countries. I've worked in comics for many, many years. Some of the highlights would be Mr. Miracle, The Source of Freedom, a few years back. I've worked on Judge Dredd. I think I'm the first African American to ever write Judge Dredd, which is one of my favorite characters in pop culture. I've done Star Trek, Spider-Man, Batman, variety of books over the years. I also had a chance to work at Blizzard Entertainment for a little while. I worked on Overwatch 2. Now it's back to Overwatch, but I worked on Overwatch 2 and Hearthstone and a bunch of other properties, and video games was an incredible experience. And finally, right now, I have a movie in theaters right now as we speak called Takeover, starring Quavo and Billy Zane, Monica Garrett, Soraya, and Martin Sizeheimer. Incredible, street racing / action thriller. Check it out. I co-wrote it with Jeb Stewart, who was the guy who wrote Die Hard. So that was a great experience, and I'm more than happy to share whatever I can and hopefully illuminate and inspire some folks.
Last but certainly not least, Stephanie Williams.
I am Stephanie Williams and going to try to find my voice just because, I write comics, and a lot of folks know me for bringing Nubia back to relevancy for DC Comics. Recently, you might know me for Street Sharks, Roots of Madness, and Temporal. So, right across, no matter the genre, I'm there to tell the story. And I'm just very happy to be here and talking with you guys because everyone on this panel, Aaron, you included, you all contribute and do work that I greatly admire and appreciate. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What else just happened for you? Something just happened.
Oh,
yeah.
So
Something mysterious happened. Yes,
I brought it up. I didn't say who. I didn't say who.
Yeah.
I brought it up.
So that person Aaron was talking about was me. I have been nominated for 2 Eisners. I didn't know that. I knew of the one, which is for Best Writer, which is insane to me. This is the first nomination for a Black writer since '95, Dwayne McDuffie. That is a 31-year difference. And quite obviously the first Black woman. And my series, Temporal, has been nominated for an Eisner for Best Series, which is also insane because that was a story I said I would never tell because it involves time travel. So if you learn anything from this from start, don't second guess yourself. Tell the stories that you want to tell because quite obviously they're needed.
Yes.
That's amazing, and it goes. She got one of my tempura copies I have over there. It's amazing, and it goes into the ability to tell a story, right? We all have a story that we want to talk about, and it's important to tell it. But goes into what we're talking about today, the technicalities of it, and working through it, and being able to effectively speak and talk about and share your vision through comics and in these visual mediums, right? It starts before the art's put on the page, right? It starts with these people here who write it, right? And so with that, my first question, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. And what was your first experience with script writing? What was the first thing you saw? For me, I've read novels all my life, so like the first time I saw a script wasn't until I saw like a special edition Batman, and in the back it had some script writing notes. I said, wow, okay, this is how comics are actually made, right? And so you hear about the mythical script writing from movies and everything, but it's also applicable to comics and the other again, visual mediums. So what was kind of like your first experience with script writing? That first, this is how it works, or even that first, like, I'm really interested in doing this, right? AJ, you go first.
So I think I always remember the story when I was like 3 years old, and I used to draw hieroglyphics on the wall, and I got in trouble from my mom because she's like, you're not supposed to be drawing. But then she looked at him and she realized that there was like storytelling there. I was literally doing sequential storytelling. So I feel like I've always been a sequential storyteller, and I look at my 4-year-old, and he's kind of mimicking those things already. So I feel like storytelling has always been in my blood. But specifically when you ask about script writing, it's when I first took my foray into film and television, and I started writing screenplays. I always had an eagerness to write movies and TV shows, so I would watch them and I would digest the dialogue, and I took a little screenwriting course, and I just started writing my first script, I think on Microsoft Word. I didn't know what I was doing. So yeah, it was really just my decision to try to be a TV writer that I started writing my first script, and then eventually landed in comics.
Stephanie?
For me, I think it goes all the way back to The Sims. I'm talking about OG Sims, because you could take screenshots of, your Sims characters in their homes, and there would be a little text box at the bottom. So I remember a friend and I put together a little story about our classmates. Might even got in trouble for it, but I remember a teacher seeing that and being pretty amazed by it. I didn't think much of it, neither did my friend. We were just doing something silly and fun. Fast forward, memeing was another part of me kind of getting into script writing, or at least for comics, just because I would take these still shots from, different shows that we were familiar with, like X-Men 92, Justice League Unlimited, and tell stories using these still shots, because I wanted to do a little bit more than just do random one-off memes. Like, I decided to start telling stories since they would always go viral on Twitter. And then very similar to you, Aaron, like the very first time I actually seen a script was from a trade paperback that I picked up, House of X, Powers of X. Jonathan Hickman scripts were in there. And by that time I had, been writing about comics and decided, I am tired of wishing some of these things existed. And as the great Toni Morrison said, create the things that you want to see. So I decided to study those scripts, still working a 9-to-5. So in between, lab experiments, I was trying to figure that out, and started with writing one-page comics because, one, it was affordable to get an artist to do that. And then also it really, really helped me just get a grasp of the craft before I moved on to bigger and better things. Because if you can write a story in one page, you can write it in 100.
That's a good point. Brandon?
Oh, wow. I would start, I was born in 1974, so back in the 1900s. And I got a chance to see all of the major engines of pop culture the first time. on the big screen, whether it be Star Wars, Jaws, Superman, Alien, Blade Runner, The Thing, Ghostbusters, all of that stuff I got to see the first time on a screen in a crowded theater where no one was talking, but there was cigarette smoke everywhere, but nobody was talking. And I got heavily inspired by all of that material. And often found myself walking out of the theater mentally and emotionally charged up. And I would continue the story in my head. And that kind of culminated in my sophomore year of high school, where I wrote a bunch of like short stories about alien invasions of Earth. And my friends, who were all upperclassmen at my high school, took my notebooks and shared it with other upperclassmen. And then a week later, I was suddenly some kind of hero because I'd written stories that people who I didn't even know, they were like, wow, who's this kid? He's a sophomore. He's not a moron, blah, 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 blah. And that was kind of the beginning of the idea that I could tell a narrative and get, some kind of attention for it, and then hopefully paid eventually long term.
Mhm.
But in the short term, people actually were excited about something that I wrote, and that fundamentally shifted the way I thought about the written word and how it could, be a part of my life. I never thought of it that way. I never thought that I would be a writer. So all that stuff, like being in the 80s, pop culture, the birth of MTV, the birth of hip hop, all of that stuff kind of became a part of my cultural DNA. And that heavily inspired me because the hip hop at the time, pre 1996, 97, a lot of it was purely entrepreneurial in essence.
Mhm.
Think about cats like, the Ghetto Boys, Scarface, E40, Too Short. You talk about like a lot of cats, they were selling demo tapes on cassettes
Mhm.
out of the back of their cars. So that kind of thing, kind of stuck with me and made me realize that you can become a generator of content. They didn't call it content back then,
Yeah.
but now you call it content. You could become a factory, a generator of content yourself. So it was like that high school experience, and then growing up in the zeitgeist of original sci-fi and genre IP.
Mhm. David?
I think for me, it started with, first growing up loving comic books. My dad introduced me to, my first ever comic book was Death of Superman,
Mhm.
which was very morbid for me to read as a 6 year old. Um, but then I was like, wait, so like they can't always win. So it kind of like
Mhm.
messed up how I see stories in a way. But I think when it comes to script writing, I think, maybe around middle school, my mom couldn't find like someone to watch me. So she dropped me off at this place that no longer exists called Borders. And, it's now like kind of sort of a Barnes and Noble now, or a Walden Books. And I would just read, comic books all day. Like I loved it. I was like, please, mom, drop me off there. Give me $10. That's how much it used to cost everyone to get a full blown meal.
Mhm.
And I would just read all day, and then I kind of wandered into the feature film aisle, and I saw Goodwill Hunting and American Beauty. And I'm like, what? Yeah, that's weird. Why is it in book form? And that's when they used to like publish the screenplays for it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, and this was like around the time where I was struggling to read. I don't know why I was like struggling to read around this time.
Mhm.
I mostly related to comic books, because I just that certain thing of just having the visual, just really stimulated my brain and imagination. And this is and no disrespect to anyone that loves like Harry Potter, because all my friends were nuts about that, and I couldn't get into the books for whatever reason. um, and something about reading screenplays, it was able to be succinct and clear, where I was able to like go back and then watch the movie, even though I had no business watching Good Will Hunting or American Beauty at 12. But like I was like, wait, so it was so silly. I was like, wait a minute, what happens in this script is what exactly happens in the picture. And also just seeing how it's even communicated and how that
Mhm.
language is. And I kept on doing that. I would just read screenplays all the time. And then I got inspired to actually write over something really silly. Like I went to go see years later. I went to go see Spider-Man, and I remember being mad. I was like, "How is this teenager getting a job at this freaking newspaper? I was like 14, 15 at the time. Like only McDonald's and like the grocery store are gonna hire me. Like this is bull crap." And I was like, "Wait, what if Peter Parker like worked at McDonald's?" So I like wrote this script where Peter Parker is working at like I don't know, like Burger King or something like that. And he's dealing with a disgruntled customer, but he has to go and do a Spider-Man thing, but he can't leave because his boss will like fire him. So he's like trying to be like really patient with this really angry customer, and in his head he's just like, you know, like I can bench press more than any member of the X-Men. Like I can run just as fast as Captain America. I can handle this woman. Right.
Mhm.
And that was like my intro into it. I was like, no one's gonna believe how did Tobey Maguire get that job? Who's hiring this 15-year-old? This is irresponsible. So yeah, it's a very funny scene to 15-year-old David.
I think that kind of touches on like kind of the next thing I would talk about is like you talk about finding screenplays and like back in the day they used to publish them, right? And now the resources for finding those things have become a little bit more elusive, in my opinion. Like especially for more popular movies and stuff like that, right? But with that, it's also about and we talked about it. I think Brandon brought it up in another panel I was in. No, not Brandon. I was just another panel. It's about being obsessed with what you want to do, right? And that's also with the research, with everything, right? So in your journey of script writing and getting better at it, were there any resources that you use to like strengthen that ability, that muscle, I would say, right? Let's start with Steph.
Absolutely. So probably from my research background, I dove right into that. So of course, finding more scripts, uh, understanding comics by Scott McCloud, making comics, other resources that other professionals would offer on their websites. So Jim Zub was one. He had like a wealth of knowledge and whatnot there. Listening to other writers, comic writers, talk about their process and panels that when I would attend at conventions or podcasts, but really just trying to be a student, which I still am to this day because the way that I script 5 years ago is so different than how I script now, and taking advantage of being in spaces where I can tap into resources that are not available online. So when I receive a script from, another writer because I'm working on an event or something like that, I got a Mark Wade script and I forgot what it was that he did in the script, but I really thought that it was an effective way to get information across clearly for the artist. So I think I've been implementing that for the last 2 years. So really just trying to absorb as much as possible. Because I don't know, I feel like script writing is something that will always be ever evolving as you grow as a storyteller.
Mm.
Brandon.
Well, wow. There were a few resources. One was a book called Story by Robert McKee. And then there was Stephen King's On Writing. And there's an audiobook version and also the prose version, obviously. But the audiobook I found, Stephen King does it himself. And I felt that the nuggets of wisdom, it was like taking a graduate MFA level course in the span of like 6 hours. And after you go through Stephen King's On Writing, I truly believe you are armored with what you need to begin a career as a writer, whether it be in prose, comic books, movies, TV, whatever you want to do. There was another writer, sci-fi writer named Michael Stackpole, who does a lot of battle tech and a bunch of other stuff. And he still has a website, but back in the day, before everything got monetized, his website was stormwolf.com. And he would have all these tutorials for writers, particularly of genre fiction. So it was like an amalgamation of resources that I took. And there's so many other books. I mean, Samuel Delaney has books. He was an African-American sci-fi writer, one of the first. He has books about writing, looking at stuff from like Zora Neale Hurston, looking at stuff from James Baldwin about how to approach the idea of story, and particularly when you're black, in the United States of America, there are things that are inherent in your past and inherent in how you can approach story. So I feel like those resources. Tons of screenplays. I would recommend anything written by Patty Chayefsky, who wrote Network. So I would recommend anything by William Goldman, who did Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids, All the President's Men, as well as The Princess Bride. These are like perfect screenplays. People will sleep on this, but look at the screenplay for James Cameron's Aliens. Look at the screenplay there's a film that came out in the mid 80s, a drama film called Children of a Lesser God, starring William Hurt and Marlee Matlin, about a deaf woman finding love. And there's another film I'd recommend by Neil Simon, written, called The Goodbye Girl. If you want to know how to write people as people, these are screenplays that I strongly, and I would say, are absolute required reading. Anything really by Neil Simon, anything by Spike Lee. Spike Lee scripts captured a moment in African American life. Spike Lee was the only person ever to write a screenplay, as far as I know, that takes place on an HBCU until they did Drumline.
Yeah.
So these are things you should think about. Anyway, so those are the things that kind of hit me, and because Spike Lee has books about his early screenplays, those are also, I would say, highly recommended.
I'm over here writing down a little bit inside. I'm like, let me make sure I get these down.
Brandon, text me this afterwards. Really.
I'm about to put a list on this one. David, go ahead.
Yeah, Brian Michael Bendis. This is what helped me just make Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, or at least focus the idea. It's called like Words for Pictures. It's a little bit outdated because the book came out like a year before Kickstarter. So because like there's a whole entire chapter that's about like the business of comics and breaking into comic books and financing comic books and all that stuff. And again, like ignore that because Kickstarter exists. But yeah, like he just had like a great like way of teaching how to script comic books, how to write to the artist, and even just kind of saying that this is a collaboration. Yes, it starts with you, but at the end of the day, it's like someone is going to draw this, or someone is going to say this, or in my case with doing film TV stuff, someone's going to say this, someone's going to ask, well, what are they wearing? But also just being really simple and clear, and just being really specific in it. And I think there's a book that I picked up at Borders that I got for Christmas. Christmas 2000. Thanks, Mom. Shout out to Mom for getting me the Screenwriter's Bible. It's by David Trotter, and it just like breaks down like writing different types of scripts, like for writing feature film and TV and also plays. Because he just says like there's like a different approach to doing all of them. With like theater and play, it's mostly about language and about blocking. And film, it's like much more specific than that. And TV being like a happy mixture of both, but being more flexible and open to change. But yeah, those are the things I mostly used or focused on, or being in community with other writers as well. Like even if I get like, I think one time I talked to Brandon one time, and then after our phone call, I was like, wait, I figured it out. And it can be like little things like that. Like community is really, because we're like alone a lot of the time, right? And we're usually isolated. So being in community, I think, is the biggest thing. And that stuff happens to like Rodney Barnes, who I'm extremely jealous of. We were at like we were having lunch and catching up, and it's a busy, loud restaurant, and he had a similar thing where he's like, wait, say that again? And I said whatever I said. He's like, I figured it out. And this tall ass Negro pulls out his laptop and starts typing in this loud ass restaurant. and he's calling. He's like, "Hey, I figured it out. Anywho, so this is what we do." And I'm like, I can't do that. The way my ADHD is set up, I cannot do that in a loud ass restaurant. Who is this? Like, who is this monster? So, like, yeah, but those are my things. Words for Pictures by Brian Michael Bendis was great for comic book writing. The Screenwriter's Bible, and also just being in community with other writers.
That's. I want to talk about that too, but AJ, you go first before I say anything on that.
Yeah, so everyone here has listed a bunch of different excellent references. I'm going to give a couple that people have not listed. Everyone always talks about Save the Cat. That's like the number one book that people recommend. I'm kind of split on Save the Cat. I feel like it's a little bit outdated and a little bit too formulaic. Like if I was writing like a buddy cop movie in the 90s, it'd be like perfect, right? But I'm not sure that modern sensibilities need the strict tight formula that Save the Cat uses. So if you get that as a recommendation, I would say be open to, maybe not using all of the principles they teach within that. But out of all the different books and comics and things that I've read on writing, one of my favorite was Alan Moore's comic on writing. He wrote basically it's a little mini graphic novel about writing, and I've always been a big fan of Alan Moore, comic book writing, even though he's not a fan of his own writing comic books. But his book on writing is excellent. Like it's he talks about how like you have to know everything about your main characters. You have to know their birthday, their favorite ice cream. Even if that information doesn't make it into the script, it could make it into the script subconsciously. It makes you understand the character more deeply. Very much in the way that actors, when they go method and stuff, they understand everything about the character, even though that doesn't show up on the screen. It's still part of the DNA of how they work with the character. So Alan Moore's comic, I think it's called On Writing or About Comic Writing. I forgot the exact name of it, but whatever. Alan Moore's comic book about writing is really good. There's a book called Dynamic Story Creation by a guy named Maxwell Alexander Drake. I believe that's his name. Out of all the books I've read, for whatever reason, that book just stood out. It was just different. Like I learned writing tactics from this book that I just didn't see anywhere else. And I think the full title is Dynamic Story Creation, Drake's Brutal Writing Advice. And it's super brutal. Like it starts off with I think the first paragraph, it says, "You'll never be a successful writer." I think that's how the book starts. And I'm the type of person who I'm rational emotive. So like I like that. I like being told that I can't do something, or like I like strict hard love. That's me. Some people won't like that, but that's my learning style. Maybe that's how my having African. I know, right?
He took it as a challenge. He took it as a challenge. You read that first line.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
I bet.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know. Maybe it's having a Ghanaian parents or whatever that you just get conditioned that way. But yeah. So his brutal writing advice, Drake's brutal writing advice. I love that book. It's really great. Oh, Masterclass. So I know a lot of people use Masterclass and people have dipped their toe in and out of it. The two Masterclasses that I found the most useful was Aaron Sorkin's and Shonda Rhimes. I think Aaron Sorkin is arguably the best film dialogue writer. A lot of people say, can you handle the truth? You can't handle the truth, right? We all remember his dialogue. If you would have invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. Like his dialogue is just so good. So Aaron Sorkin, I learned about the poetry and the movement and using alliteration in my dialogue from the Sorkin masterclass. The Shonda Rhimes masterclass is S tier. Because not only is she an amazing, probably maybe the best, like most story television writer, but she knows how to teach. So a lot of people are really good at writing, but they might not know how to teach writing. Shonda Rhimes knows how to teach writing. And her masterclass was just, enlightening to me. I learned so much about how to write, where to write, what mood I need to be, how to surround myself in the right environment to, execute the best writing I could. So those are the things that I think moved me the most. And it's like Stephanie says, I'm always a student. So I'm always still trying to learn. I'm always trying to take more classes. I'm always trying to read more books whenever I get time because I always want to improve, right? So I never get to a point where I'm like, I've maxed out my writing talent. That's just not a thing, right? We always have to try to get better. So just like Crownson also said, community with other writers, learning from other writers, receiving scripts, seeing how they wrote something and, employing that into your own strategy is really, really good. So
I think that everything you guys agree with. We made up a lot of great points that like with the masterclass, it's funny. I took a NK Jemisin has a masterclass on world building, and I took that, and I came out of that, and I said, man, I got a notebook. I started drawing because she draws her stuff before she starts writing. Like she draws out what she thinks the world is going to look like. She does like this is the desert, this is whatever, right? That, and so it's important that like as you're going through your writing journey, that you know you have community, you have resource, you have all these things bring them together, and even with screenwriting, there is. I don't totally remember the website's name right now. If I find it, I'll put it in the description of this video. But there's a website that has like a lot of scripts for free, and you can go on there and read them all online for free as well. And I'll find it, I'll do it. But David said something that I kind of want to pick on, and it talks about like the technique, your technique in writing and how you write, right? And that's kind of what we've been saying from what we've learned from these resources. So what I really want to ask is, as you've grown as a writer, is there a technique that you swear by with your script writing? It's like something, because you know not all scripts are built equal and not all of them are the same, right? But with your script, there's something that you say, I have to do this or my script just won't be what I want it to be. Is there like that certain technique that you guys have? Brandon, you go first.
Wow. For me, I have a 2-tiered system of what I do. System one, if I'm doing something from scratch, like an original world, I develop the economics first. Like, how do people either look for resources, trade resources, and how do people make money in that world? That's if I'm building from scratch. If I'm working in a pre-existing world, I start asking myself the question, what does the villain think they should have that they actually don't deserve? And that usually, and it's a question of what do we want versus what do we need? Like a classic Rolling Stones song, you know, sometimes you don't get what you want, but you get what you need. The Wizard of Oz is kind of the best thematic example of that, because they already had what they were looking for. They just didn't know it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think about stuff like that. So what I want to do usually is, for original worlds that I build myself, I start with the economy. Because after reading the original Dune novels, I realized that so much in Dune is just basically the trade of oil. You know, so the Spacing Guild, the Spacing Guild in Dune is really OPEC. I mean, the planet is called Arrakis. Get it? Arrakis. Right? Drop IS. So I think about stuff like that, right? But also, ultimately it's about the characters. And what does the character want versus what does the character need? Villains, heroes, whoever it is. You ask that question, and that will be the engine of drama. So that's really where I start.
Okay. AJ left and came back, and he messed my order up. David, you next.
I lost my Wi-Fi.
No, you're good. You're good.
Me.
Yes.
For me, it's I love and hate my process because it is so much work and time. It's such a silly thing, but it works for me. Like, okay, this is silly as hell. For whatever reason, I have to write everything down, like literally like pen to pad, composition paper, and we'll write either the full-blown treatment in the notepad, and then I will type out the full-blown treatment, like depending on what it is. If it's a series of comic books, or recently, like I give it up for me, I just wrote my first movie, and with the studio and stuff. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very happy with it. But like, it was writing the full-blown treatment out on pen to pad, and then I type out the full-blown treatment. and it's for like friends, or and again, this is about being in community and getting people I trust. Either it's my editor, Sharonda J. Brown, who's amazing, or if it's something that I want to take out, having my manager read it, or close friends I really trust, who are experienced in that genre or not experienced in that genre, to get a different point of view and have them read it. And then everyone will either say thoughts and feelings, and then I start this shit over. Sorry, it's very frustrating. I start this shit over again, but then I'm like, okay, I'm going to write the script now and work off of the treatment. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much my process. And I think even with comic books, I'll write the full blown script. Something about just pen to pad just like activates something in me and just makes the, because I don't know, I hate the, I hate typing and I hate working
Mhm.
on computers and all that stuff. But it just kind of smooths it out and also like trims some fat, once when I'm working off of the notebook or working from treatment, and I'm like, wait, that was never funny. I just needed that to keep moving. Or like, there's something, David, I stole this from. I didn't steal this. He shared it and we exchanged. David Walker does a thing that I love, where he's like, if he can't figure out how to, because you have to keep it moving, you got to get to
Mhm.
the end, and he has a deadline, and he was like, I want this character to say something poignant, and then he was like, fuck it. They say poignant line, moving moving on. And he'll get to like the ending, and then he's like, wait, I figured out what it was.
Mhm.
Because he's like, you can't stop or lose like the momentum and everything like that. So yes, lots of writing on my notepad, um then typing the full blown thing out, and then working off of that, and then just doing the process all over again, but just working from that foundation. Yeah.
AJ.
Yes. It's great advice. I'm taking all this advice too. Couple quick things. I don't really believe in writer's block. For me, it's more about writer's motivation. Am I
Mm,
motivated to write? If I'm motivated to write, I'm gonna write. So for me to get over writer's block, I have to move around. I've always been a kinetic writer. I remember
mm,
when Lin-Manuel Miranda said that he wrote Hamilton while riding the A train. So it's like
Ooh.
I've always, when I used to do hip hop, I used to write all my songs on the train. So I got very accustomed to writing in motion. So a lot of times I'll be driving around with my wife and she's like, why aren't you paying attention to what I'm saying? I'm like, because I'm writing dialogue in my brain because it got activated because I'm driving around picking up the kids. I'm sorry, I can't help it. But whenever I move, I don't know something. So I don't know if that's something that might work for you. If you're stuck, literally just get up and walk around, and maybe that might, give you some energy to create. Or you might see something in your neighborhood that inspires something that you were trying to get, or get to write. The other thing for me is outlining is writing. To me, I feel like my story is all in the outline. And I spend way
Mhm.
more time in the outline phase than I do even in the script phase, because if I get my outline tight and I get it to the way I want it to, the script is really just filling in the blanks. So, and my
Mhm.
outlines are super detailed. I'll have dialogue, I'll have scene descriptions, I'll have a lot of the writing done within the outline. My favorite parts of the story are going to pop out in that outline. So really, the script is just going to fill in the connective tissue, and whether it be stage direction for film, or if it's art direction for the artist. And the last thing I'll say is like, a tried and true method for me is I try to use these four questions that I apply to every story that I have. Is what does my main character want? What's keeping them from getting what they want? What are they going to do to get what they want? And how are they different in the end, either by not getting what they want or getting what they want? So usually, if I'm writing a script, if it fails one of those four questions, I know I don't have a story. Oftentimes I'm watching a movie or reading a book and I'm like, this is not working for me. I don't really like this. I don't know why. And then I run it through those four questions and it'll like fail. It'll massively fail one of those four questions. And it's like I said, this is just a general thing. It doesn't work for everything. There's a lot of different conventions you can apply to writing a script where it might not work with those four questions. But generally, most stories, when you lose the story, it's because either your protagonist doesn't have agency in their own story because they're not making decisions that are getting them to what they want, and
Mhm.
whatever is preventing them from getting them what they want is not, it's not offensive enough. Like it needs to be something that they have to really maneuver around through, or barrel through, and that's where all the drama is, right? The conflict, that's where the conflict comes from. So if you have an antagonistic force that's just not strong enough, then you don't have enough drama and your story doesn't feel as rich, right? So that's why those 4 questions have helped me at least guide me into making my a story that might not be on track to get back on track.
Okay. Steph?
I'll try to add something new because everyone has kind of touched on a lot of different things that I incorporate. For me, sometimes it starts with asking, what is this mundane thing? So, for instance, for temporal, uh, that story is inspired by an idea of me being at comic conventions and looking for retro gaming devices for my son because he's like really big into that. And my friend joking and saying that, I'm the Laura Croft of conventions. That got me to thinking about this very mundane, everyday thing and how do I set it in, a world that is interesting. So Brandon talked about this in starting, well, okay, well then what does this world look like? How does it impact everyone's their lives and building the world that way? What else? I don't believe that anything is waste, like bad ideas or good ideas. If something doesn't fit, I'll file it away for later because maybe it works later in the story, or maybe it's its own thing and it's too big for the story and it's its own separate thing. Outlining, as AJ said, like that is my bread and butter just because a lot of times I'm working on multiple projects at the same time, across different genres. So outlining is where I've learned to love and understand that if my outline is together, then I won't have such a headache navigating this story. And a lot of my outlines start as short stories. So I found that that is the best way for me to really just see things and also adapt that into my scripting because I don't want my scripts to look like IKEA instructions. I want it to be something that, yeah, like I want it to be something that both everybody who has to read it enjoys and is able to get into the story because I'm telling my story first to my editor, to the artist, the
Hmm.
letterer, the colorist, and I need them to, be able to see it. And if I only have like, I don't know, storm turns her head to the left, what emotion are you evoking from that? Nothing. So I like to hopefully lean into tapping into other people's creativity by sparking that through my writing and through the script. And the best way for me so far has been to kind of write these things out as short stories and then go through and further break it down into an actual outline and kind of go from there. I read a lot of novels, and because of that, I think that helps with story pacing, which is crazy for a comic, but it does. We talk about page turns. It's a lot more than just a flashy thing. Comics, you are doing a lot of math when you are writing your story. So for instance, I don't like to change scenes unless it's on an even number page, which is your left side. I feel like that has helped with story pacing, just because it's not an abrupt, Jean Grey and them are on the X jet on the left side of the page, then all of a sudden you got them in a cave somewhere. Like that's not going to make a lot of sense for the reader. That's going to be jarring, and it's also going to be jarring for your artist. So just kind of thinking about the page economy as I think of my story and how much time should we spend and what can the reader fill in the gaps with that I don't have to actually put into the script. So thinking about all these things as I'm thinking about whatever the story is and how it is going to best fit this particular medium.
Can I add one thing? She mentioned just one real quick thing. If you're writing and you have a certain page count that you have to stay within, like Stephanie, she writes professional comics, so they usually say, hey, every issue is going to be 20 some odd pages is your
Mm-hmm.
allotment. What I've started to do, if they give me like a 24-page allotment, I'll do my outline for about 20 to 22 pages. I always keep an extra 2 or 3 pages, and then when I finish the script, I look back and I see which scenes need to be plussed, and I'll add a page or two to those scenes. And it's easier to do it that way than to write the full 24 pages and then realize that you need more space for a certain scene and you don't have
Yep.
any more space for that. So that's just a quick thing that I've learned over the last couple of years, is to always outline about 2 3 pages fewer than what you given.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I also just want to just add something. I think AJ, you had said like where I think my friends wanted to hang out one day, and I said, "Oh, I can't, guys. Like, I'm writing." And they all went out, and I went to my spot at like Barnes and Noble or whatever in the city, and my friends were out, and they saw me, and I'm just like this. And then I just like do that, and then and they're like, "Hold up, man, we've been watching you for 10 minutes. You just been staring into space. You ain't writing, brother. You just didn't want to hang out with us. You David, you ain't writing." I'm like, "No, I promise I'm writing." Like the laptop, everything there. I just like will stare into space for like, I don't know, I'm thinking of all the variables. So yeah, that counts as writing. I'll be thinking about actually doing dishes. You're
doing it like Jay-Z. You're just writing all the bars in your head, like, you know.
Yeah. He's like,
well, I mean, experience in
right.
life is writing. Like, you know, we draw a lot of our, our stories from going out and experiencing the world, either through, ourselves or through family members or friends. So going out is definitely, it's writing. Let them know that, like, you are doing recon for your story at the Barnes and Noble while you stare at the wall.
Exactly. It did get me in trouble with my girlfriend at the time because I was staring into space, and an attractive woman walked by, and she was like, "Oh, excuse me," and I'm like, "No, I'm not thinking about the lady in the yellow dress or whatever that just walked by." So, "Oh, so you know she had a yellow dress then?" I'm like, "No, damn it!" Like, didn't win.
So we're on time. We're over time a little bit, and I want to keep going because I have more questions, and there's so much I want to pick more from you guys. But we're gonna have to end it right there. And I really appreciate every single one of you stopping by and doing this panel. Like I myself am inspired to go right now. I'm about to go, cancel all my meetings for the rest of the day. Say, yeah, I got to do that. I can't do that, but I wish I could. But you guys dropped a lot of gems, and for people that are watching, probably not during the live stream, but in individual video, I'll definitely try to compile as many resources together and put them in the description. So if you want to go and maybe look at the books they've read and stuff like that, and get a chance to look at those or audiobooks, whatever, and get that. Also, if I find that resource, I know there is somewhere. There's a free resource to get screenplays. I'll also link that in the description as well, so you can look over that. But this was amazing. This was very informative, and I think if you want to write for comics or TV or animation or anything like that, a lot of this information is invaluable. And also, per usual, if you've gone this far in the live stream, which actually isn't too far, I'm looking at the schedule on the side. I think we're in Saturday. Anyway, I think we're in Saturday. If you're going this far, then you know that all of their information and description will be in the information. Everything will be in the description. Stephanie Williams and all their social media and the stuff that they do, their websites, all that. Go check out their comics. Go check out Takeover, the movie. Go check out Ianu. Go check out Temporal. Go check out Harriet Tubman and Demon Slayer. Go check out
Killer B.
AJ. Killer B, AJ. I have your comic, but I cannot remember the name right now.
Tales of the Shadow Man.
Tales of the Shadow Man. Go check those out. And appreciate you guys. And please, if you're watching this, stay tuned for the next panel in Ink and Panels. If you're watching this, the recording, thank you for watching. We will see you on the next one.
Bye. Bye. Thanks, everybody.
It doesn't overwhelm the reader, it doesn't do too much, and it's something that with each installment of the series, you kind of see the world expand and expand and expand and expand.
I implemented some of the more traditional comic book script writing in with it to make it easier for the artist to understand.
My ideas are born out of either something that I am just either researching and then I've gotten like really stuck on it and I've gone down this rabbit hole.
Building that world that for people to be able to immerse themselves in, right?
You want to get into the field, and next thing I know, next time I see them, that same convention next year, they got a book that they want to show me.
And so I think the big thing about us was we were on the same page about how we wanted to do it, how we could do it effectively, and it just worked for us.
It's just crazy the feeling that you get when you make that connection And my fellow comic book creators know, like when somebody comes to your table and tells you that they really like your story.
Ink&Panels.
Ink&Panels Volume 2.
Ink and Panels Volume 2.
It's called Ink&Panels Volume 2.